How do you build the American dream from the ground up for countless others? In 2013, Maddie Hernandez opened IIBA's Napa office as a team of one. Just her, a vision, and a desire to help others achieve the American dream. Today, she leads 15 staff members, helping immigrants navigate some of their toughest decisions. As the daughter of immigrants, Maddie's journey in public service earned her recognition, like the Napa Can Do Spirit Award. But her real achievement isn't the accolades. It's creating a team that empowers resilience and opportunity, a team that helps dreams take root and grow throughout the community. What's your name?
My name is Madeline Hernandez, formerly Felden, and I am an immigration attorney. I'm the North Bay Regional Directing Attorney for the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And tell us about what the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area does.
We provide direct immigration legal services, education, and outreach opportunities. So we do immigration legal services like citizenship applications, DACA renewals, family petitions, asylum, family reunification. We do some removal work as well. We really focus on family and humanitarian. So we don't do like student visas, work visas, tourist visas. We focus on, family and humanitarian.
And you mentioned it's the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
So talk a bit about the community that you work in specifically.
Yeah, so we have 7 offices in 6 counties. And I specifically work in the North Bay. So I work in Sonoma County and Napa County. And here in Napa County, the population is mostly Hispanic and a lot of industry, so farm workers and industry, restaurant, hotel.
Oh, that's good. Where'd you grow up?
Okay, I grew up in Oakland, California.
And what type of neighborhood? Just describe. For people who don't know, what is Oakland? How did it feel growing up in Oakland?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it was super diverse. I loved it. I definitely think I grew up in a little bubble. I grew up very privileged, I will say that. I think I was very unaware that people that were undocumented existed. Like, my mom's an immigrant. My mom immigrated from Panama. She met my dad in Guatemala. Yeah, so it was actually a funny story. My dad moved to Guatemala, and my mom's sister was in Guatemala. And anyways, long story short, they met on a weekend.
Oh.
And they instantly fell in love. And he was like, come back to the US with me. So she moved to the US with him, and then they got married.
Wow.
Yeah.
How much?
Less than a year.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So met your mom in Guatemala.
Yeah.
Love at first sight, and a year later they were married.
I don't know the exact time, but yeah, it was pretty quick. So, but I don't think she has she has an immigrant story, obviously. My mother's an immigrant. She spoke no English when she got here. She had to go to school, learn English. They had my sister, they had me. She was learning English while we were learning English, while we were getting raised.
Yeah.
And so, but I just thought everyone's immigrant story was hers.
Right.
She came to the US, she met my dad, they got married, she was fine, she had status. I didn't realize that there was sort of this other world out there where it's not that easy for everyone. She came in the late 70s, and so the barriers that exist now didn't exist when my mom came, Many people that have the same story as my mom don't have legal status. And it's not because they did something wrong, it's because they didn't have the same opportunities that she had because the laws changed. And I think that's what we see a lot in the work I do, is that it's not that people are doing things incorrectly, it's that there's not an available pathway for individuals.
Can you actually say that again? So the environment and the available pathways in the 70s when your mom came to the US just aren't the same as they are today. And why is that? Structurally, what's different?
Yeah, so the Immigration and Nationality Act changed. There were some statutes that were introduced in the 90s 1996, 1997, that changed the way that people could immigrate to the US. One of them, there was many, but one of the main changes was that if an individual was in the US for a year or more and then left the United States, they could not re-immigrate for another 10 years. So they were barred from immigrating back to the US for another 10 years unless they qualified for some kind of pardon. And then if an individual has 1 year or more in the US and then they leave and re-enter, then they're actually barred from re-immigrating like permanently.
Wow.
So they're basically bars to immigrating that were created in the late 90s that really negatively affected many people, because before people would come, they would do some work, they would leave, they would come, they would leave, they would come, they would leave, and there was not really any negative consequence to that. And what changed after 1997 was that you couldn't just leave and come back without triggering these bars to reentry.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very nuanced. Yeah.
But it highlights that an issue that we have is we need immigration reform in the
We
US.
absolutely need immigration reform. So I think there's one of the things we see a lot is individuals who have U.S. citizen families. So there's a lot of mixed status families everywhere, but I work in Napa and Sonoma County, so we see that a lot. And that could look like one individual's undocumented, they are married to a U.S. citizen, or they have a U.S. citizen child, or they have U.S. citizen siblings. And so the idea is, okay, I'm married to a U.S. citizen, or I have a U.S. citizen child, and therefore I qualify for a pathway to citizenship, right? But if an individual has 1 year or more of presence in the U.S. without status, then they have this barrier to overcome. And so many people, although they have the family members, the qualifying relatives, to start an application, they can't actually receive the benefit without leaving the United States for 10 years. And this is so common.
But then they're incented to stay and maintain. The decision is either leave with a chance of having status 10 years later,
Correct.
or stay in the United States where you've built a family and been working and been a productive member of a community.
Yeah.
And neither of those options, one is a legal path and one is a totally not feasible option.
Correct.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's, we do, the way that we get new clients, so we do consultations, and that's kind of how, like the start to a case, right? So in individuals, they say, I want to see if I qualify for a pathway to citizenship or a benefit or a work permit or whatever. And they call the office, we say, okay, there's a consultation available X day. So let's say they get me as an attorney, and I have a conversation with them, and I say, we go through the whole questionnaire, and then let's say they do qualify for a pathway, then we would start the case. So I would say that if I do 6 consultations, maybe 1 or 2 of those individuals actually qualify for a pathway to citizenship. And the others, I'm having this conversation with them. Yes, you have a U.S. citizen child, it's 21. Yes, you have a U.S. citizen spouse. But when you left the United States in 2003 to visit your father's grave, and then you re-entered, you actually now no longer have the opportunity to immigrate through your spouse. And so it's a hard conversation to have. And it's why we need immigration reform so badly. And I feel that as hard as it is to have, it's better for me to give an individual the correct information, right? So they can make an informed decision. And I think what we saw here prior to IIBA being present in Napa County, back up. So IIBA was asked to come to Napa in 2013. And so what happened was the Napa Valley Community Foundation funded a study from Migration Policy Institute.
Yep.
And there were many, many findings in that study, but one of the findings was that green card holders were naturalizing at a lower rate than the rest of California. So they're going from green card holder to U.S. citizen at a lower rate than the rest of California.
Yep.
And so the Napa Valley Community Foundation thought, well, what can we do? Because there's a lot of benefits to becoming a U.S. citizen. Becoming a U.S. citizen is correlated with higher income, with higher levels of education for your children, with higher rates of home ownership, with more civic engagement. So there
Yep.
was all these very positive correlations with becoming a U.S. citizen. So of course we want that for our community. If we have green card holders in our community, of course we want them to become U.S. citizens, right? And so how can we incentivize individuals or get people to become U.S. citizens? So there was a complete lack of legal services here, affordable legal services. So they were like, oh, let's see California, let's see what nonprofit agencies there are. So they asked IIBA to come. They partnered us with trusted community resource centers, and we sort of just started providing immigration legal services. And so I don't know where I was going with this.
How many people do you work with a year?
Where did I start with that?
No, that's fine. Keep going. How many people do you, no, we're gonna take you in a different direction. How many people do you work with a year?
Like clients?
Yeah.
Okay. We generally our Napa office files about 800 cases a year. Yeah.
And how big is your staff?
We are a staff of 15 now, I believe.
Amazing. In between Napa and Petaluma?
I think between Napa and Petaluma, I think we're 16 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And 800 cases a year.
So we're not 15 in Napa then.
And maybe describe the average person you're working with, the average client. Have they been living here in Napa for a long time? Do they have a mixed status family? Just give us a general sense of who you're working with.
Yeah. So majority of the clients we see in the North Bay have been our established residents of the North Bay. They've been here for 10 plus years. They have children here that are in school.
Who are citizens?
Who are many who have U.S. citizen children. They have long established careers. They've been working for the same place for over 5 years. Many of the applications ask like what your last 5 years of work history is, and a majority of our clients have been working for the same place for over 5 years.
Yep.
We also see a lot of individuals who are now retired, who actually got their green cards back from Reagan's amnesty program, and never moved forward with citizenship for no reason other than it just wasn't a priority in their life. But then when we were present and we were sort of, doing a lot of outreach around the benefits of citizenship and let's do it, then we started seeing a lot of people come forward who were like, oh, well, I just never did it before, but let's do it. So we actually do see a lot of individuals who got their green card back in the 90s.
That's incredible.
Like my father-in-law.
If you're a green card holder in the U.S. and you don't avail yourself of legal services, do you just how do you actually move the immigration process? How long does that take? And what's it like working with an organization like IIBA versus not having that resource? What would the community members do if they didn't have a resource like IIBA?
Yeah, so to go from green card holder to citizen isn't like a super long process. I mean, once you actually make the decision to move forward and apply, right now we're seeing it take about 6 to 8 months after you submit your application. But I think there's a couple barriers. So cost is a barrier. So the citizenship application right now costs $760. Plus, if you were to pay a private attorney, it could be over $1,000, right? And so I think that's one barrier. And then another barrier is the history and civics exam and the necessity to speak basic English. And I think a lot of people can. They don't know that you can. So it's like if you're not told, oh, you have enough English to pass the test, or you don't have that support to move you forward through the process, then you're not going to do it because your green card status doesn't expire. So once you're a lawful permanent resident, the only way that you can not be a lawful permanent resident anymore is if an immigration judge orders you deported, takes it away, or if you personally abandon your residency.
Got it.
So I think there's a lot of myths around that as well, especially right now with the media, but you actually, a ICE officer, a CBP officer cannot end your green card, your lawful permanent residency status. You have to abandon it or an immigration judge can take it away.
Got it.
So many people just live their lives as green card holders. My mother did it for a very long time. My father-in-law did it for a very long time. So once we were out in the community, IIBA and our partner organizations talking about the benefits of becoming a U.S. citizen, talking about like everything that's positive about, the right to vote, travel without limitations, and all the things I said earlier, then people started coming forward. And we were providing the service for free.
Yep.
And we were assisting individuals with fee waivers. So not only were people not having to pay us legal service fees, but we also were covering the $760
Amazing.
for the government fee. And so similar to that, if someone is undocumented and they qualify for pathway to citizen for their green card first, so it goes, undocumented and then green card and then citizen.
Yep.
Not always, but that's like one pathway, right? That pathway can be much longer and much more expensive. So a very, let's say, simple case. I am here, I entered the US on a visa. I overstayed my visa. I met the love of my life, who happens to be a US citizen. I don't have to leave the US. I'm not going to trigger any bars. I don't have to do a waiver or pardon. That process could take, a couple years. So my US citizen spouse, they petition for me. I wait. I have my interview. I get my green card. Then I have to wait 3 years to apply for citizenship. So, and each step has a cost also.
Got it. Yep.
And so I think just navigating the forms, the process, properly filing, the fees, it's like, it's a lot for people to do by themselves without support. And so IIBA is here to support individuals on that pathway. If they qualify, right? And then if they don't qualify for anything, IIBA is here to support individuals understand their rights as human beings in the United States, regardless of immigration status, right? And so, yeah.
And could you actually talk about that? What are the rights of human beings in the U.S., regardless of immigration status?
Yeah, so everyone has rights under the U.S. Constitution, although we hear otherwise in the media, unfortunately. But everyone has rights, and so what's really important for us to tell people is that most individuals have the right to due process.
Yeah.
And that is a right allotted to them through the Constitution. And so what we want people to know is, yes, you are undocumented here. You don't have a pathway to citizenship right now. However, if you happen to get picked up by ICE, you are going to ask to see an immigration judge so that you can ask for a defense or a relief from removal. You do not have to sign an expedited removal. You do not have to sign a voluntary departure. You can ask to get released on bond. You can go in from an immigration judge. You have those rights, right? You also have the right to silence, to remain silent, to not speak, to not give ICE officers information that shows that you're a non-citizen. You have the right to privacy, right? So if you're in your home, if you're in your car, if you're in a private location, then you have the right to not allow an ICE officer or any officer to enter, right? So we try to really, we talk about these a lot. We do a lot of Know Your Rights information sessions, especially post-November 2024, when we knew sort of what was coming. IIBA got together with, a lot of organizations, and we knew that one thing that was going to be very necessary in this administration was going to be Know Your Rights sessions. Yep. And so we done over 50. We've done virtual, we've done in-person, we've talked to employers, we've gone to churches, and what's really important is just making sure individuals understand their rights, regardless of their status.
And how is the community feeling right now?
I think the community is scared and anxious, and it's like this very uncertain environment where there's a lot of stuff on TV that's very scary. Yeah. There's a lot of language and anti-immigrant rhetoric that makes people feel like they have no protections. Yeah. Unfortunately, I think the result of that is people going back and into the shadows and feeling like they have to hide for the next 4 years. People feeling like they're going to be separated from their children, people feeling that their rights are being violated. And so really this just kind of like uncertainty and anxiety around like what to do.
Yeah.
So it's our job as service providers, as advocates, to advocate for individuals that do feel vulnerable, that are the marginalized community, to ensure them that, you know, they do have rights, that we are here for them, that we will support their journey and their process. And, you know, if individuals are picked up, we will be there to help them navigate the system of, you know, a court hearing or things like that. But it's hard. It's hard because there's not as many immigration attorneys as there are people getting picked up.
Of course.
And so, you know, nonprofits are overwhelmed right now. There's capacity issues. And of course, we want to be able to provide everyone representation, because when an individual has representation, I can't remember what the percentage is, but there's like a certain percentage of winning a case.
Yep.
That it goes up. And so we would want everyone to have that opportunity.
And to use a personal example, talk about Ilem and maybe her story kind of pre and post, like how when you met her, where she was living, and then what her process was like.
Yeah. So when I met her, Ilem was undocumented. She was married to a U.S. citizen and had U.S. citizen children. And she had been in the U.S. for 20 years and never had status. And she was working, and she was paying her taxes, and she was an incredible mother and an incredible human, and she just didn't have immigration status. And so when they came to us, we looked at her history, we looked at who her qualifying relatives were, the U.S. citizens, and we said, okay, what is the best pathway for you? And she fortunately was an individual who qualified for a pathway. And so we were able to...
Because she had stayed in the U.S., she hadn't left, right?
She hadn't left. Yeah, she had stayed in the U.S., she hadn't left. And something that was really positive in her circumstances was that her husband was a veteran. And so most individuals who enter the U.S. undocumented have to leave the United States, and that's when they can't come back for 10 years happens, right? To do their interview at the U.S. consulate in their home country. There is a policy, an immigration policy, that states that if you are married to someone in the military, or someone who is honorably discharged, or if you have a child who is in the military or honorably discharged, that you get to stay in the U.S. to do everything. And so she got to avoid leaving, and so she did not have the barrier of the 10-year bar to overcome because her husband was a veteran.
If her husband wasn't a veteran, would the pathway you recommended have been to leave the United States?
Yeah.
And that would have been her only pathway to citizenship?
Yes.
So for someone who is married to a U.S. citizen, has 3 children in the U.S., has been living here for 20 years, has been paying taxes, their only pathway to become a citizen is to leave their family?
Most of the time, yes. I mean, there are, there's exceptions to everything. But I mean, generally, yeah.
Yeah. So just to reiterate, for someone who's been living in the U.S. for 20 years, has 3 children who are citizens, and is married to a citizen. In the case of Ilem, she was married to a veteran, so she had a different process. Mm-hmm. But normally that person will be required to leave the U.S. For 10 years to enable any path to citizenship.
Yes.
And we don't have a better pathway.
Not right now.
Incredible.
There are pardons that people can apply for to overcome that 10-year bar, but not everyone qualifies for it. And the pardon in and of itself can take up to 5 years. So, yes.
In Ilem's case, she'd been in the U.S. I know she told us personally she'd been calling her mother every day. What was it like to process her green card application and kind of see that process through today?
I mean, it was wonderful. I remember she got her green card, and I can't remember if it was right before Mother's Day or right before her mom's birthday, but her husband, John, surprised her, I believe, and bought her a ticket to go see her mom.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And she hadn't seen her in 20 years.
Wow.
And when she told me that she was able to go see her mom, we were both crying. I mean, it was like, it was just this wonderful experience of someone who just was living her life and did nothing wrong and was a wonderful human and wasn't able to see her mother. And then finally, when she was able to see her mother, it was just a wonderful experience. And, you know, unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that same experience. We have many clients who their parents pass away in their home countries, and they're unable to say goodbye to them. They're unable to attend their services because they know that if they leave the U.S., that will negatively affect their future possibilities of getting status. People that don't get to say goodbye to their loved ones. And I think that's very heartbreaking that there's not this process for individuals to be able to travel. Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Why did you decide to commit your life to doing this?
I think for me, when I went to law school, I knew that I wanted to do work that was meaningful. I didn't know what that was going to look like. I didn't know what that was going to be. There's a lot of meaningful work in this world, right? I wanted to be able to see the impact of the work I was doing and do something that was meaningful to me. And I think immigration law just kind of fell into my lap. So at Santa Clara, they have a program where you can work in Costa Rica. So I was able, again, like I said, very privileged. I got to go to Costa Rica, and when I was in Costa Rica, I got to work with refugees in Costa Rica, and I really never looked back. So when I got back to law school, it was like, I took all the classes I had to take to pass the bar, because I was like, I have to pass the bar, right, to become an attorney. But everything else was focused on immigration. We had an immigration program at Santa Clara. I also asked the professor who ran the immigration program if I could take on like immigration cases. So I took on 2 immigration cases, like in court.
That's amazing.
Yeah, one of them was asylum, and the other one was a Ninth Circuit court case, which I actually won, and I argued in front of the Ninth Circuit, and I set precedent at the Ninth Circuit. But anyways, everything was focused on immigration. I just was like, every unit I could possibly do was immigration. And then that was just it. And then I passed the bar because I had to, and if you asked me a question about like family law or any other law, I would have no idea how to answer it. But immigration, it was. And so, like I said, I graduated, and it was really important for me to work for a nonprofit. Very important. As I mentioned before, like there's so many barriers for individuals to move forward with immigration benefits if they qualify. And I just wanted to say, if there's one barrier that they're not going to have to overcome, it's going to be cost, right? Yeah. So IIBA is a nonprofit, and luckily we are able to charge either no fees or very nominal fees. And we charge based on household size and income, if we charge. And no one is denied for the inability to pay. Incredible. So we do fee waivers a lot. Cool. But nonprofit was super important to me because of that. I just wanted to say, like, you're not going to have that barrier.
Why do you care so much? So that was immigration, but there's some kernel. Is it your mom? Like what gives you?
I think my dad, honestly. Okay. Yeah. So, you know, my dad went to UC Berkeley in the 60s. He was his advocate. I mean, he was marching. He made sure that I was raised with this notion of everyone needs to be treated the same, and we need to use our privilege for good, and, you know, there are communities that are less fortunate, and that's not okay. Yeah. And so he was very liberal, and he raised me very liberal. And so I think that was it. You know,
Yeah.
I just knew that I wanted to do, like I said, meaningful work. And what that means to me is work in a community with individuals who don't have the same opportunities as I had growing up, and make sure that I can at least assist in making sure that they have opportunities later, you know, like, yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but
No, understand. What does the American dream mean to you?
I think the American dream for me is the ability to have a voice and a choice. So choose what you want to do and be able to do it and not have barriers in front of you.
And what about for someone like Island?
I would say the ability to be a mother and a spouse and a individual and not fear that that's going to be taken away from you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the ability to live freely without fear that the things you love are going to be taken from you.
Without fear is a really critical part of that. What was think about the last 12, 18 months, let's say 18 months. Talk about a day that's been really hard and talk about a day that's been great.
Okay. November 5th was really hard. It was really hard because I knew what the impact was going to be. I think it was like 10 p.m. and I knew it, right? Probably other people knew it probably earlier, but I was like holding on,
A
you
little
know,
bit of hope,
a little bit of hope.
Yeah.
But at 10 p.m. I went to bed. I think I cried myself to sleep. Not necessarily because I personally was going to be impacted a lot, because I know I live in California and I have a lot of protections, but because I felt like I knew what was coming. I felt that I knew that things were going to start happening where rights were going to be taken away from people.
Yeah.
And not just the people I work with, not just the immigrant community, but all vulnerable communities, LGBTQI+, many communities, right? So that was hard for me. And then I guess a really positive day for me was when I could gather with other advocates and we could plan. We could plan to say, like, what can we do to just continue doing the work we do and make sure that for the next 4 years, we ensure that people have the rights that they need to have, and the protections. And so,
If you had to argue for someone to be here, not on a legal basis, but to say, this person deserves to be in this country, and why? How would you argue that? Like, what would you say vocally about people who are in Napa in our community who have been working here?
okay, I would say that because they're a human being, they deserve to be here. Okay, I'm going to say this, and you can put it in or leave it out.
Yeah.
Or I guess, I don't know, my boss might get mad. I think that the value that is being put on individuals for their economic contributions and their work is sometimes frustrating, because it's like, they're the farm, who else? Okay, this narrative, I don't love this narrative. I don't love who's gonna pick our grapes, who's gonna pick our fruit, who's gonna clean our homes, who's gonna cook our food. Like, I don't love that narrative, because why should it matter?
Yeah.
This is a good individual, a good father, a good mother, someone who's a hard worker and who just should be here. I think we should just look at the humanity of it. Individuals should get to stay in the US and have a pathway to citizenship because they're human and they've been here and they live here and their life is here and their children are here and their spouses are here and their families are here and they're a part of our community, period. Not because they're cleaning my hotel room. Like, that shouldn't be why someone gets to stay here. Yeah, that's what I'm feeling lately.
We tend to, when we think about things on a holistic basis or a population level, we start to become overly analytical and say, well, what about the economy? Or what's a wonkish solution to the problem? And then we forget that every day you're dealing with people who have families and are in communities, and they're not, these aren't tourists, they're not, and they're not opportunists. Like, they've been creating lives here for, in many cases, decades. And to reinforce the personal stories, I think, is really important. Because, we're not talking about human resources.
I think sometimes, like, the argument goes there because there's these myths out there, you know, oh, immigrants don't pay taxes and they drain the welfare system. And so it's almost like you're trying to debunk the myths by saying, actually, they pay taxes, and actually they pay into Social Security but don't get it. And, you know, so you're sort of trying to debunk these myths, but in that you're dehumanizing an individual and you're putting a value on their economic contribution instead of them as humans. And so for me, it's more about someone has built a life here, and so they deserve to stay here. And then, you know, new individuals who are coming now are fleeing violence and persecution and seeking asylum in the US, which has been part of the Immigration and Nationality Act for many, many years and is a lawful way to come to the US. And so there's also nothing wrong with what they're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work you do. This is not for camera roll, but I think this is going to be like the critical test of our society and the character of our society in this moment of like who we are as a country. Like, this is, I think, just the hardest moral question we've had. I don't know if it's in a very, very long time. I'm trying to think of a more challenging question that we've had to ask ourselves as like a nation, because I know we want to believe that we're a country of laws, and we should be a country of laws. But at some point, someone's inalienable human rights supersede some perception of what you think someone's status should be. And I think that gets lost in the conversation here. And I also think that what gets lost is that no one like checked the box and said, I want to be illegal, or I want to be undocumented. They didn't transgress. They didn't break a law. And to your point, in many cases, they came here legally under a process that we prescribed, or they had status, or they like, and it's not, and just the complication of all this, I think, gets to a point where people just lose, you know, a sense of that these are human beings. So, I thank you for committing your life to this. I mean, again, I know we'll save that for a couple drinks and later conversation, but I'm always compelled by people who spend, I don't know, it took me a while to get to a place where I was committed to doing something good. It feels like you're just like, it's in your heart and you just want to do it.
I think a lot of people get lost in law school too. Like, when my 1L year, my first year of law school, there was a lot of people who were like, yeah, I'm going to do social justice work. And then, like, you know, they're working for firms, and that's fine. You know, like, people need to do what they need to do. People need to do what is best for them and their lives. But it's like, I just never, that never even like occurred to me. Like, the thought of doing like corporate law is just, there's no point to me, for me. So I just knew like that was never anything that I wanted to do.
This is your calling.
Yeah. I love it. Probably a little too much sometimes. You know, like when I have a newborn and I'm still working. But, you know, it's like, it's important to me. This work is extremely important to me. And these are humans that I love. This is my community and my friends, my neighbors, my family, my coworkers. And it's like, everyone deserves to live in the United States without the fear that what they love is going to get taken away from them. I think that's like the most important thing for me to like assist with supporting, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for the conversation. It's crazy. Like, I have a lot of learning to do myself. So my dad was an immigrant. But he tells a story of he's English, and when he never graduated high school, joined the military at 18, and we got out. He tried to immigrate to the U.S. and they asked him, as he tells it, these are big fish stories, right?
Right.
But he's like, they asked me how many assets I had, and I asked them like, what's an asset? And they said they were like, and you're done. They're like, you should go down the block and try the Canadian embassy.
Yeah.
So he did, and he actually immigrated to Canada. And this is where the story gets funny, because he met my mom when he wasn't living in the U.S., but she was. And I was like, what were you doing in the U.S.? Like, I was just hanging out. Like, it's like, so clearly, like these conversations of, he was just working and living in the U.S. as a Canadian permanent resident, holding a British passport, and like, ended up marrying my mom, got a green card.
Right.
And it was like, that was
Easy
easy peasy.
Yeah.
Never in that process was it.
Yeah.
And it is just, different time, different laws, different rules for different people.
Yep.
And we should also appreciate that. Like using this fairness narrative of like, well, I came here legally.
Yeah.
It's like, look, I get it. These stories some people went through hell to get through a process.
Yeah.
But right now we're in a very, very different environment.
I mean, go to Ellis Island. It's like, you came legally. You mean you came on a boat and you were processed and then you were legal.
Right. You said, I'm going to go to America.
Yeah.
And the way to get there is to get on a boat.
And you just have to, do some here, and then that's it. It's like, can you imagine if that existed now? Like, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's just
doesn't exist.
It's not.
It
We don't have a system.